Let's take a closer look now with Roger Hilton. He's a Canadian and a defense fellow with GlobeSec. It's a think tank based in Slovakia, but we're connecting with Roger today in Berlin, where he was attending a seminar at which the rebellion, as you can imagine, was discussed. So, Roger, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, hello, Canada from Berlin.
So if Putin wanted to try and reaffirm his presence as a man, as a leader who is in control today, do you think he accomplished that?
I think there's very little reason to believe that sort of this very orchestrated meeting that he had with the Security Council was in any way a success. A lot of the action of President Putin during the crisis, fleeing, apparently heading to his bunker in the Black Sea region, and then having Aleksandr Lukashenko negotiate the deal was quite telling. And I think now with him sitting at this national security table, every decision he's going to be making regarding the war, anything else is going to be under a microscope. It's going to be heavily scrutinized. So for the moment, I don't think he's even out of the woods yet when it comes to his regime survival.
Okay, so we're going to pick up on that in just a second as well. But I also want to talk briefly here about Yevgeny Prigozhin, who it would appear reportedly is now in Belarus. The fact that he's there, is that sort of like a poke in the eye to Putin every single day that he's there? Or how are you thinking about Prigozhin's status at this point?
Well, if you look back at Vladimir Putin's track record, anybody who's crossed him hasn't really lived that long to tell about it. So immediately, the first thing we need to establish is that Yevgeny Prigozhin started a coup or a mutiny that turned into a coup and is still very much alive to talk about it. In addition to every time, that he's in Belarus, it's also important to reiterate that he's had extreme success on the battlefield in Bakhmut, and he's also been very successful in terms of destabilizing the United States with the Internet Research Agency. So, of course, it goes without saying his presence in Belarus is more than just a provocation to Putin. I think it still might be even an active threat.
And where does the Belarusian president, Aleksandr Lukashenko, where does he play into all of this in terms of his role and sort of where he is sort of, who is he an ally with at this point? Is it still Putin in your view, or how are you thinking about Lukashenko?
I think the ideology of President Lukashenko goes where the wind blows. The number one thing for him, just like President Putin, is regime survival. And I think he got a small taste of what could theoretically happen in Belarus if he didn't put down the revolt right away. Obviously, for the moment, it's probably in his best interest strategically to keep siding with Putin, who also helped him put down protests in the past. But that's not to say that President Lukashenko is not open to a new partnership or seeing what else is on the table in terms of what Yevgeny Prigozhin could potentially offer up if he was able to solidify more of the army and have oligarchs and members from the Silvoliki and the intelligence service defect to his side in the long term.
So if we come back to Putin here, how are you thinking that this might play out in Russia going forward in the days and weeks ahead in terms of Putin and those who are close to him?
Well, it's also just crazy to keep thinking about that, there's a war going on with his barbaric invasion of Ukraine. So I think the first thing that I take away is that he's still very much inward looking at the moment. I don't think Ukraine has a lot of his focus. And I think like most Soviet leaders in the past, I think he's going to be exceptionally paranoid. He's not going to be sure who he can trust. And as he said, he's allowed, excuse me, the music is a bit loud. He's allowed Yevgeny Prigozhin to stay alive, and he still possesses massive media influence. He's definitely, as you would say, a media influencer on Telegram. So I don't think in any way that he's focused on what's going to happen in Ukraine, and it's completely out of the question to think that he's working towards any of these much larger global projects with China and Iran when it comes to sort of trying to change the rules-based international order.
So, Roger, of course, like I was saying there off the top, you've been at this seminar the past couple of days. I'm wondering how you and some of your colleagues are thinking about all of this in terms of what you're going to be looking for as we go into the summer, in terms of how all of this could be playing out.
Well, just to clarify for everybody, I'm here on behalf of the Bundeswehr, the German military, attending the 40th edition of the Manfred Wörner seminar. So I would just like to say clearly that I don't speak for the seminar or for the German armed forces. There's a collection of people, of young professionals from Europe, North America, who have been following it keenly. I don't really think at the moment, I speak only for myself, but I don't really think there's a consensus on where the long term of this will be going. And I think the biggest takeaway for me on this is that this is a massive advantage for Ukraine. The reports today that they've crossed the Dnipro and are now on the left bank of the Kherson province, captured the city of Dachi, means that they're really already setting up ground for potentially making a bridgehead towards eventually taking Crimea. So I think with Putin's eye off of the ball, focusing on sort of his security and, having to sleep with one eye open, I think this is a great opportunity for Ukraine to make some big gains on the battlefield in the short and long term.
Okay, Roger, thank you. We appreciate your insights today.
Thank you very much, everybody.
That was Roger Hilton for us in Berlin. He's a defense fellow with the think tank GlobeSec.